Do you struggle with falling asleep or wake up every night at 3 a.m. and stare at the ceiling going over your to do list? Well, then get ready because in this video, I am going to share my top strategies for getting a good night's sleep. If you are new here, hello, my name is Jen Costanza. Welcome. I am a holistic burnout recovery coach for career driven women, and one of the most common complaints that I hear from the women that I work with is poor sleep. And it's not surprising. When you're under chronic stress for a long time, especially, and you're burning out, sleep is one of the very first things to go. It's really a big challenge because sleep is, on the one hand, it's a symptom of burnout and chronic stress that you've been under too much stress, right? But it's also something that will cause you more stress and exacerbate the feelings of burnout that you're feeling because you're going to wake up the next morning, you're going to be exhausted all day long. And when we are tired and sleep deprived, that is a huge stressor both on our body and on our mind, right? Now, there's two ways that these sleep problems tend to manifest among women that are under a lot of chronic stress. On the one hand, we have what's called the tired and wired phenomenon. And this is super common, so maybe you can relate to it. It's this phenomenon where you're tired, you wake up, you're tired, you're probably fueling with caffeine, you're tired all day long, you're just kind of like daydreaming at your desk about going to bed at night. But then when bedtime comes, it's like you got a second wind. You lay down, your head hits the pillow, and you're wired. You can't stop thinking about your to do list. Or maybe you're so tired, not so tired, but you're so wired that you don't even go to bed at all and you're just scrolling on your phone or, cleaning the house or something late at night. So that is one problem. The other problem is that you might be able to get to sleep okay at night, but then you're waking up at maybe 2 or 3 or even 4 o'clock in the morning, a time that is not normally the time when you'd want to wake up. And then it's like you're just kind of like you've got insomnia, right? You're laying there, you're counting sheep, you're staring at the ceiling, you're going over your to-do list, you're thinking about all the things that you have to do or that you did incorrectly before, you're ruminating on all of your problems. If you are experiencing either of those things, we're going to give you some solutions. I'm going to be going over 7 strategies that you can start implementing today to start getting better sleep. And I want to say this, sleep is one of my favorite things to talk about because in most cases it can be easily solved, and the impact obviously of a good night's sleep can be just so dramatic on your energy and just on your mental and emotional well-being. I want to start with step 0, as I like to call it, and that is to prioritize sleep 100%. Now, this might be a no-brainer to some of you, but a lot of what I have seen is that women get into this situation where they say that they want to get a good night's sleep, but the things that they're doing don't really put them, in that direction. Because there might be this underlying belief that you have that maybe you even haven't admitted to yourself that somehow you're special, you're unique. None of these strategies are going to actually work for you. They work maybe for other people, but they don't work for you. And I want to really caution you against that kind of mentality. You are not special. You're special in many ways, but when it comes to getting a good night's sleep, unless you have been diagnosed by a doctor with a sleep disorder, such as sleep apnea, for instance, these strategies should work for you. And even if you have been diagnosed with a sleep disorder, all the strategies I'm talking about today should be able to support you in helping you get a better night's sleep. So that's step 0, is that you have to be 100% committed to doing whatever it takes to implementing these strategies to get a good night's sleep, right? The other thing is, before I get into the strategies, I want to suggest 3 simple mindset shifts that are really going to set you up for success. Now, the first one is that you really, when it comes to sleep, you really need to focus on what you can control or influence even if it seems like it's small or like it's not going to work. Like I said, all the strategies that I'm talking about here, they do work. Some of them might seem insignificant, and many of them will feel uncomfortable for you. That is, I want to be totally honest about that. Like, just for example, scrolling. We all love to scroll, especially if you are dealing with a lot of stress. This, scrolling on the phone is a huge, it's a coping mechanism for stress, right? You're not going to want to stop it. But this is one of the things that this is one of the places where you really have to be 100% committed to getting better sleep in order to get better sleep. And if that means experimenting to see what happens if I stop scrolling on my phone in bed, you have to be willing to do it. So that's number one. Second mindset shift is that you don't have to do, I'm going to be giving a lot of strategies to you, right? You don't have to do all of them or do them all at once. So when I work with my coaching clients, these are the strategies I'm sharing with you here. They're the same ones that my clients use, the same things, right? But we don't do them all at once and we don't implement them all at once. And we might only find that, for a particular person, she needs to start doing a couple things and voila, her sleep comes back, right? So I'm just putting this out there to keep you from getting too overwhelmed by all of this, right? I'm giving you a lot of ideas and I'll give you, some suggestions about what might be the first thing to focus on. But the idea isn't to do all the things and to do them all perfectly. It's to work sequentially and to do, we'll do one thing and then maybe add on to it. Okay. The other thing that I want to suggest to you, and I also consider this a mindset shift in the sense that when we are thinking about getting a good night's sleep, I think one of the first things that most people think about is their bedtime routine. And of course, your bedtime routine is going to be important in setting the stage for a night of quality sleep, right? But if you really want to improve your sleep, most of us need to look beyond the bedtime routine and we need to look at what we're doing all day long from the moment that we wake up, because there are a lot of things that we can do during the day that are going to actually make it easier for us to fall asleep and to stay asleep at night. So those are the 3 mindset shifts I want you to keep in mind. Okay, now let's get into those 7 strategies for improving your sleep. Strategy number 1 is to reset your circadian rhythm with morning sunlight. What does that mean? Well, you know how I said that it's not just about your bedtime routine, it's about your whole day? And it's actually about the moment that you wake up. How good or how high quality your sleep is going to be is going to depend on what you're doing right first thing in the morning. And the best thing that you can do is to get outside and get under the sun, or even if it's a cloudy day, basically expose your eyes and your body to UV light. We want you to get outside for about 15 minutes. The longer the better, but 10 or 15 minutes is a good place to start. Now, you could be taking a walk around the block, or you could even just be sitting outside on your porch with, your whatever your morning beverage is. I had a client who did that. She was super struggling with sleep and hadn't really gotten a good night's sleep in years. And this had a huge impact both on her energy during the day and on her ability to fall asleep at night. And that's because when we go outside first thing in the morning and we're exposing ourselves to sunlight, it's sending a signal to our brain and our body that, hey, it's time to wake up, it's morning time. And it's like an internal clock starts ticking off. And about 14, 16 hours later, you're going to be tired and you're going to be ready for bed. Now, the thing about this, I want to say this is the number one thing. Number one, if there's only one thing that you implement from the strategies that I share in this video, I would start with this one. It'll have an enormous impact on your energy. It'll have an enormous impact on your sleep. One caveat is that it does take a few days, usually for most people, a few days of consistently doing this for it to start to change your energy patterns so that you're falling asleep or you're feeling sleepy at night. But it's just such a huge impact. And I really, really, if you're going to do one thing, do this. Strategy number 2 is that you want to be moving your body every day. Now, that doesn't mean that it doesn't have to be crazy. You're not like going to a HIIT class or running a marathon or anything. It's just that one of the main factors that impacts how, your ability to get to sleep at night and your ability to stay asleep at night is how much energy you actually exerted during the day. And so this could look like a lot of different things. You could be going to the gym, you could be taking a walk, you could be doing some yoga, you could be getting on your bike, you could be doing anything. It's just that you want to be moving your body during the day, which I think is really important for us to be thinking about, because especially if you have a desk job, like many, many people do, you might be spending a lot of time sitting during the day. I certainly do. So I'm always trying to think about, I'm planning out when I'm going to move my body, like go to the gym, go surfing, whatever. And another thing that you can do is plan short breaks periodically through your day where you're going to move your body. Maybe you're taking a quick walk after lunch. Maybe you're taking a quick walk after dinner. Just inserting movement into your day wherever that you can. This is another thing that is fairly easy to implement and can have a big impact. Okay, strategy number 3, we've got watch your caffeine intake. I know you don't want to hear this, especially if you love your coffee, which I do. I love my coffee. So I totally get it if you don't want to cut down on caffeine. But here's the thing is that if you're having problems sleeping, and you want to sleep better, then cutting your caffeine consumption needs to be on your to-do list. Now, all of us have different kind of tolerances for how much caffeine that we can drink during the day and not have it impact us at night. And so you kind of might have to do a little bit of experimentation to see what difference cutting down is going to make for you. If you're not having any coffee at all, then you can totally skip this strategy, right? And go on to the next. But if you have coffee like in the afternoon, first step might be to say, all right, 11 a.m. or 12 p.m. is my cutoff time. No more coffee after that. That can make a huge difference right in itself. And I should mention that obviously coffee is not the only thing that has caffeine in it, right? If you're having soda and it has caffeine in it, certain chocolate drinks, tea, obviously there's other drinks that we can think of. I know some people love Red Bull. All of these drinks, the first step would be, okay, can I cut down where I'm not having it after midday, and see how that impacts your sleep. Do that for a few days and see what happens. And then the next step obviously will be to cut down a little bit more. So let's say that you are drinking on average like 3 cups of coffee or 4 cups of coffee. Can you cut that in half? Can you see what happens when you're only drinking 1 or 2 cups? See how you feel. See how that impacts your ability to fall asleep at night. Just go gradually and see what happens. You might not need to eliminate coffee from your life entirely, especially if you love it, which I do. I really love my coffee. I don't want to get rid of it entirely. Yes, there's a lot of alternative coffee drinks out there, but I think we can agree that most of them are not exactly tasty, or they are an acquired taste. So I'm not telling you have to eliminate coffee from your life. It's just, let's see what impact dropping down caffeine consumption might have on your sleep. Strategy number 4, stick to a consistent sleep and wake schedule. So our bodies like to be in a rhythm. So what we really want to do is 2 things. One is that you want to be going to sleep and getting up in the morning at more or less the same time every day, including on weekends. Yes, including weekends. And the other thing is, when you are choosing this time that you're going to go to sleep and time that you wake up, as much as possible, see if you can make it match daylight, right? Match the circadian rhythm. So like getting up when the sun rises and going to bed when the sun sets. Now, I know depending on where in the world you live and what time of the year it is, that can be really hard. So like I am filming this video right now in January in Rhode Island, and our days are pretty short right now. I think the sunset is around 4:30. Sunrise is maybe like 7 o'clock. I need to get up a little bit before 7. And I'm not going to go to bed at 4:30 in the afternoon. It doesn't make any sense, right? But the idea is that to what extent can we match, daylight hours? We want to be awake during daylight hours. It also, when we are awake during daylight hours, it gives us a lot more energy. So that is another thing to think about. Now, one other thing I want to mention when it comes to having a consistent sleep and wake schedule is I want you to consider how much sleep that you want to get, right? So most of us as adults, we need between 7 and 9 hours. And I think that it's fair to say that most of us actually need closer to the 9 hour than the 7 hour mark. You might have been able to, quote, get by on 6 or 5 hours of sleep when you were younger. That doesn't mean that it was a good thing for us to have been doing. I used to do it myself. There was a time in my life, especially when I was in grad school, I was living on like 4 hours of sleep a night for quite some time. That is not healthy. It's part of, one of many things that contributed to my personal burnout experience. And one thing that I have learned is I need at least 8 hours of actual sleeping in order to function at 100% the next day. What is 8 hours? Now, if I were to go to bed at 10 p.m., right, and I wake up at 6 a.m., on the surface, that seems like 8 hours, right? No, because for most of us, when we lie down in bed, it's going to take about a half hour for you to actually fall asleep, for your body and your brain to relax enough for you to fall asleep. So, what does that mean? Whatever amount of time that you have said that I want to be able to sleep for. Let's say you're saying I want to sleep for 8 hours. I want to get up at 6 a.m. Add 30 minutes onto your bedtime. So if I want to get up at 6 a.m. and I want to sleep for 8 hours, then that means I need to be in my bed at 9:30, right? So calculate that for yourself. Okay, strategy number 5, create a peaceful sleep environment. So this is often referred to with the term sleep hygiene. You may have heard that before. And the overall goal is to make your bedroom a place for sleeping, intimacy, and essentially nothing else besides those things. You want it to be a peaceful place where you can relax, where there's nothing around you really reminding you of your work or your other stresses in your life. So here's a few ideas for how you can create this kind of nice, peaceful sleep environment. Keep the temperature to around 68 degrees Fahrenheit. This is considered, give or take, the optimal temperature for sleep. And you can experiment, of course, to find what's most comfortable. You might already know what's most comfortable, but generally speaking, really cold or really warm environments don't really help us sleep very well. The other thing, cultivate darkness. Blackout curtains can worked great for one of my clients. You could wear a sleep mask. Do whatever is easiest to make the environment really, really dark. Third thing, so notice that we're kind of touching on all the senses, the temperature, how we're feeling, what we're seeing, and also sounds, what we hear. You really want to quiet outside sounds as much as possible. And if you can't do that, especially if you live in kind of like an urban area, you have neighbors, you have upstairs or downstairs, people making noise or whatever. If that's the case, see if you can create some white noise. There are actual machines out there. I'm not a big fan of having more electronics in the bedroom, but if needed, you can get a white noise machine, or you might even be able to do something like that with your phone. I would get a white noise machine before I start using my phone for white noise, because another tip, actually the very next one that I'm going to suggest, is that you remove all electronics from the bedroom. Move your TV to the living room or wherever. Keep your phone out of the bedroom. Get an alarm clock, a regular, normal alarm clock if you need to. If you need a phone for emergencies, get a landline. Another thing is, don't open your laptop in bed. Totally understand the temptation, but if we want to have the bedroom be a low stress place where we feel at peace and where the goal is sleep, then we don't want the laptop there. You really need to figure that one out. That can make a huge difference. Couple other things. So mattress, linens, you want those to be comfortable, right? You want to, looking around in your bedroom, you want to clean up clutter. These are all things that can mess with your head in ways that you might not even notice, but it's kind of like stuff going on in the background of your mind. It can disturb your sleep. Just generally speaking, you want to turn your bedroom into an oasis. Paint it a color that feels calming and serene and that you love, something soothing, Add some plants, add your favorite photos. Make it a place that feels like where you can relax. Okay, strategy number 6, have a relaxing bedtime routine. Finally, we're talking about the bedtime routine. I want you to imagine something for a moment. Have you ever gotten home from work, you eat a big meal, and then you go straight to bed? Like, how does that work out for you? I'm guessing, if you're anything like me, it doesn't work out really well, that you probably have a problem either falling asleep or it's a really uncomfortable sleep. Maybe you even have indigestion. Here's the thing, your body and brain need to wind down from the day. And with a good bedtime routine, you can make it easier for your body and brain to do that so that you can fall asleep faster and stay asleep, right? So, a few things to consider when you're planning that bedtime routine. One is limiting screens for at least an hour before bed. Obviously, we already talked about taking screens and electronics out of the bedroom, but when you're not in the bedroom and it's getting closer to bedtime, we really want to limit our, try to police ourselves and not be going online, not be scrolling. I know this is really hard. Not be scrolling, not be looking at screens. This may feel relaxing to you. I totally get that. When it comes to stress, scrolling, binge watching TV, even scrolling social media, whatever, all these things, they are really common coping mechanisms. However, even though you feel like you're getting relaxed, your eyes and your brain are being kept wide awake. The blue light that these screens give off, it suppresses melatonin and it tricks your body and your brain into thinking that it's daytime. So if you may have already noticed this yourself, that if you're like staring at a screen, staring at your phone, and you're like, scrolling before bed, that you try to close your eyes and it's like your brain is wide awake. You're thinking about whatever you were just looking at. It's a lot, right? So that is my number one tip for a relaxing bedtime routine, is limiting the screens. Another thing, when it comes to food and drink, try to stop eating and drinking about 3 hours before bedtime. When you've got a stomach full of barely digested food, that's going to keep you awake. And drinking liquids, even water, too close to bedtime can cause you to wake up in the middle of the night, possibly multiple times, which is no fun, right? We want to put a stop to that. We want to not have to get out of our bed in the middle of the night. We want to sleep the night through. And I know that this can feel kind of confusing, at least it does to me, because there's all of these relaxing teas out there, like sleepy time tea, and now we've got adaptogen teas that are supposed to be like helping us to sleep, but at the same time they're problematic in a sense, because now we're drinking more water and we're increasing the likelihood that we're going to wake up in the middle of the night and have to go to the bathroom. And I'll tell you, I actually had a client who was doing this. She was really, really great at drinking water, which, by the way, is an awesome habit to have, and it's one that I'm always working on. How can I drink more water, right? She had a fantastic habit of drinking tons of water. And the thing is that she was drinking water like practically up until bedtime. So we said, let's see what happens if you stop drinking. I think she stopped drinking water. She began cutting herself off at like 6 or 6:30. And her, middle of the night wake ups practically, were eliminated. What else can we do for our bedtime routine? We can find something to help our minds relax. So maybe that is, reading a book, a physical book, not a screen book, right? Maybe journaling, writing, whatever, playing a non-electronic game like a board game or a card game or something, doing an evening meditation. These are all possibilities, things that you can do in that last hour of the day to just kind of like put the day behind you and relax. And the other thing is that you might even experiment with things to help your body relax in the evening. For instance, like taking an easy walk around the neighborhood after dinner, or taking a hot shower, or taking a bath with Epsom salts, or even doing some like nighttime yoga routines. Those are all things that you can, put into your evening, your bedtime routine to help your body and your mind to kind of relax and help you get to sleep more easily at night. Strategy number 7, calm your monkey mind. Now, what am I talking about here? I'm talking about trying to calm our mind and do things to reduce stress in the evening. Now, one caveat to this is that something that I haven't really talked a lot about during this video is stress management in general. And I have a ton of videos here on YouTube dealing with stress and nervous system regulation. And there are a lot of ways that we can mitigate stress in our lives and deal with stress more effectively. I'm not going to get into all of that right now, but what I am going to give you are a couple ideas that are specific to like bedtime, our bedtime routine, or even if you wake up in the middle of the night, things that you can do to try to calm your mind. Something that I find that a lot of women who struggle with sleep have is that their mind is running like a mile a minute at bedtime. They're already thinking about what needs to be done the next day. And you might even be kind of replaying stressful moments from your day, worst case scenarios, or what might happen. You can't turn your brain off, right? So what can we do? A couple ideas. One is write it out. Have a journal. Here is the journal that I'm using lately. By the way, these are really cheap off of Amazon. I like having a pretty journal. But anyways, have a journal or even just like a notebook, put it at your bedside table. And if you're going to bed and you find, oh my God, I can't stop thinking about XYZ, whatever it is, take out your journal and write it all down. Oftentimes that one act alone will snap you out of your brain kind of like going nuts, right? The other thing is that then when you put that all on paper, you lay down in bed and your mind starts running, oh my God, I have to do blah, blah, blah tomorrow. You can stop yourself and remind yourself, hey, that's okay. You're not going to forget it. You just wrote it all down. This can also be really useful if you're waking up in the middle of the night and it's like 3 a.m. and you can't stop thinking about whatever it is, this thing that you're thinking about. Take out your journal, write it down. A second idea I have is some simple breathing practices to help get you, first of all, get your mind to focus on something new, your breath. And number 2, will shift your nervous system out of that state of frenzied fight or flight and into a more calm, relaxed rest and digest state. Basically, in other terms, if you're familiar with these terms having to do with nervous system regulation, essentially we want to get your nervous system into the parasympathetic state, a restful state. And one way we can do that is doing any kind of a breathing practice where you're inhaling through your nose, you're exhaling through your nose, and you are really extending your exhales as long as possible. So I could just do some simple, I will demonstrate for you right here. One possibility, box breathing. Have you heard of box breathing? I know this is a really common breathing technique. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to inhale for a count of 4. I'm going to hold my breath for a count of 4. I'm going to exhale for a count of 4. And I'm going to hold my lungs empty for a count of 4. And while I'm doing that, I'm kind of visualizing a square, kind of like, I like to visualize kind of like a bright light going down each and around each side of the square while I do that. And the other thing that I'm doing when I'm doing this breath is I'm really focusing on breathing down into my belly, breathing as deeply as possible. So I'll do a couple rounds, or I'll do one round of that just to demonstrate. So I'm going to inhale, hold, exhale, hold. So if I were in bed, and by the way, just doing that, I immediately feel, 10% more calm than I did before. I've been talking a lot, right? So if I were doing that, I would just be lying in bed and I would do that simple breathwork practice. Those are a couple ideas that you can use just to get your mind to stop running. Now, like I said, stress, huge fueler of insomnia. It's a huge reason why we get our sleep problems in the first place. And so you really need a more of a comprehensive approach for it. But that said, all of the strategies that I have given you today in this video will work to help you get a better night's sleep. Now, where do you start? This is a conversation I always have with my coaching clients. And when we're talking about it, we'll look usually at what are they already doing? What feels like it would be the easiest to implement right now? We'll get really specific and personalize their strategy for the context of their life and where they are at. But since I don't know you and you're just watching this video, I'm going to give you a couple ideas of where to start. The place that I would start, number one, is getting up in the morning and getting outside for a quick walk around the block. That kind of kills 2 birds with 1 stone. One is that you're getting outside, you're getting those UV rays. You're also helping move your body. So you're getting, strategy number 2 checked off as well, moving your body. That is where I would start for most people. I hope that is helpful, and I want to give you one additional resource that I think might be helpful for many of you. So like I said, I work with women, career-driven women who are experiencing burnout. And the sleep is just one of a number of different symptoms that might be telling us that we've been pushing too hard and that we need to make some changes. So I have a resource. It is called the Burnout Freedom Roadmap. And 2 really cool things in that resource. One is that there is a self-assessment tool for you to figure out, am I burnt out, or am I just feeling a little bit tired or a little bit stressed? I want you to get some confirmation or validation of how you're feeling. And number 2, based on the answers from that self-assessment tool, this guide will give you some ideas of what your next action steps should be. So there will be a link for that right down in the video description. So definitely go grab that. It is free. And if you found this video helpful, please hit subscribe, hit like. That really is helpful to me. And I really am thankful for you for being here. And we'll talk again soon. Bye-bye.